Okay, I'm continuing to open my nesting tubes from the spring and summer. I've taken them out and I'm seeing what I have for the first time, which is always fun. It's October, late October. First thing I always do is I hold each one up to the light and I make sure that if I can't see all the way through, I know that something is nested in there. And that's kind of a good thing to remember too. Often people say, oh, I don't see any mud plugs, so I must not have had anything nesting, but that's not at all true. Very frequently, especially in rainy weather, the bees will know to start nesting further into the tube, and so they can often leave, good 2 inches of empty space near the end. So that's always a good thing to look for. And don't be disappointed if you think that you haven't had much nesting activity, because I think you'll be surprised. So this one I'm holding up to the light. That one, no, nothing's in there. And it looks like something is in the rest of these, but you can see a couple of them, like this one. You would think, oh, nothing nested, but I can't see through it, so there must be something in there. So that's what I do the first thing off. The second thing is I take my little dowel and I just very easily pop these out so that a little bit of the end sticks out. I always start from the front of the nesting straw because the female always leaves some kind of an empty space there, which they call a vestibule. And so I know that when I push on this, even though the dowel is the perfect size and it only pushes on the actual edge of the inner nesting straw and not the mud, which of course would really smush what was in there. But this one, it just pushes it out gently and will not harm any of the bees inside. Then what I do is I take a Sharpie or some kind of a marker and I just line them up and I just go like this. The reason I want to know which is the innermost edge is because the female will lay the eggs and then fertilize them to become females, but she will only do that on these innermost the innermost section of the straws. So it's important to know when you're sorting which is female and which is male. You can also tell in other ways, but I'll show you that later. So then I just slip these out of the cardboard. They should come out pretty easily. If they don't, that's often a sign that there's some pollen, or that was a little more difficult. And you can see, anytime you sort of see a lot of pollen and a lot of sort of staining on the outside of the straws, of course it's kind of sticky and it might make your straws stick a little bit. If so, just sacrifice one of your cardboard tubes and just cut that open and then try to gently pull it out. But otherwise, these cardboard exterior tubes are, reusable for many, many years. So you can set these aside, or if you have a Plan B house, you can just store them inside for next year. Well, one thing I also do is very important. Always check both ends of your nesting straw. You can see this is the back end. It's very flat. And I don't see any holes there. And I don't see any holes in the front here. And no holes on the tube. So that's a good sign. It shows me that probably there aren't chalcid wasps in here. If there were little holes, you would know right away that those brood cells had been compromised. And you'd have to just toss them. So, first thing, cell to the very back, that is filled with mites. Little pollen mites, or hairy-fingered mites. And you can see them sort of, I think, hopefully, see them sort of moving around now that they're out in this crisp air. They're mostly just kind of white or almost clear, sometimes a little yellow, but they, become the color of the pollen. Not really a big danger to the health of the bee, other than if they get all over the bee, they just weigh the bee down and they can't fly. So of course that's not a good thing. But for the most part, they just hitchhike here from flower to flower on the bees, and then they just jump off while the mother bee is gathering the pollen and nectar for her egg. So we'll just I think I'll just put my thumb gently over here and just tap these off, since I'm outside, which is kind of a good place to do this. Right at the back here, these are nice, large, look like almost ½ inch or so. Beautiful big female cocoons. The other thing I always do is I'm careful to place them down on my tray in the same order as they appear in the straw. That just helps me to compare the sizes and to see how many there are in the straw, and a few other things that I'll discuss. But these look very nice. Two big females and kind of two smaller males. The only reason this is really important to you is if you wanted to split your cocoons up next spring. If you have, you know, more than one nesting site or one Plan B house, you would want to, of course, divide them up and put some female and male in one and some female and male in the other. So that's why it's important to keep your females and males separated. Now I'm going to put these two females in my little female dish here, just a little plastic container with an F on it. And then these males will go into the other container. I actually saved these too. I just think they're awesome. These little mud plug things. I think they're so cool. I don't know why. It's just me. Each little tiny little mouthful, when you look at them, it's amazing. Or mandible full. Takes about at least a dozen trips for each of the separating walls, and even more for the ends plugs because they're a lot thicker. So again, I'm looking at this. This looks pretty good. Not any real bad, obvious stains of pollen nectar resources. Both ends seem to be no holes. So this looks like a good healthy straw. We'll see. So here's our female end, if you will, the innermost end. So I'll start at the end here that has the empty space. I can see it already when I hold it up to the light. It's a good half of an inch that she's left, which again is pretty classic. And then she builds another mud wall, and then she lays her eggs on the pollen resource. So again, this should be a male. Nice, it's a nice healthy male. I just generally just pull off the mud plug and then just real lightly remove the dark little bits, and those are in fact bee feces. This is what the bee expelled while it was eating all the nectar and pollen sources. Once they eat everything, they know to start spinning their cocoons. So all the feces is outside, and the developing bee, which is going from a larva to a full-grown adult bee, is inside the cocoon. So these look beautiful. Another thing is I love this. It's like a mahogany brown, chestnut brown color, which is just gorgeous. And they're all just this is a nice healthy bunch. So let's see. You can see how they're just packed in there pretty well. These are nice. These really are beauties. This is a really nice straw. This is a happy little mother who had plenty of good resources and made the most of them. Sometimes you get down to this end, it's a little difficult, and you don't want to smush because this is usually one of the nicest females. So just utilize this mud plug because it's very firm usually, and just kind of hold that as you twist so that you get a little traction there without having to grip the female. And look at that nice thick mud plug at the back. It's awesome. Alright, so look at this. This is quite the haul. Nice. This girlfriend did a good job. She was a hard worker. They usually only fill 2 to 3 tubes in their lifetime. They only live maybe 6 weeks. So she was working pretty hard. Alright. This is a pretty big one right at the beginning, too. I almost think that might be a female, but these are definitely females. 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'll give this one to, yeah, I guess it's not so big once you clean up. So 7 females and 3 males. That's really unusual, and that's pretty cool. And again, I love this color, and this is one of the ways you can also tell the difference between other non-native species, especially the horn-faced, because the horn-faced bees nest in exactly the same way as the mason bees, but their cocoons are a little more, have like a tighter stretched appearance, a little more shiny, not kind of fuzzy, and they're more of a silver color. And usually they're quite a bit smaller. So that's that. That's great.